Well, thank all of you very much for allowing me to share a few minutes with you this morning. Standing before you is probably one of the most fortunate creatures on earth. And I say that because I stumbled upon a profession that has served me well. I married well above my station. I have 2 children who are well on their way to success and 4 grandchildren who are well on their way to independence. And I'm a cancer survivor. You put all that together, there's a lot of happenstance that came into my life, and I wanted to share a little bit of it with you because I want to end by challenging you to also get involved and give back of some of the many rich blessings that you, along with myself, have been bestowed. One of the, obviously the most famous book that's ever been written is the Bible. There's a verse that's particularly meaningful to me. It says, "From everyone who has been given much, much is demanded, and from one who has been entrusted with much, much more will be asked." So that's going to be my theme today. Let me tell you how I stumbled into accounting, because one of my concerns as we work with young people is that oftentimes they choose their career path without really knowing what that career is like. By the time they have prepared themselves through education and otherwise, then they're already committed. So many of us, and I suspect that you have an equally compelling story, probably entered in our profession without a great deal of thought or planning. But mine was fairly simple. A couple of clues I had to this world called accounting. I spent 3 years in the Army as a medic. My commanding officer was a career doctor. He was a major, so that tells you he kind of goofed up here and there, because otherwise he'd have been a colonel or something. But during the course of this relationship that I had as a medic, little field hospital, very much like the MASH unit, he and the chief nurse had something going together, and somebody had to know where they were all the time, and I was that person. So I had a favored relationship with this doctor, and when I got ready to retire, or actually leave the service, be discharged, he said, "Stosch, you ought to become a doctor like me." And I said, "That would be wonderful. I would like to be a doctor. I'd like to help people. I'd like to help them maintain their health and live the good life." I said, "What do I have to do?" He said, "Well, the Army will make you a doctor. We'll send you to college. We'll send you to medical school. You have to have 2 years of internship. You have to have 2 years of residency. And after all of that, you can become a doctor like me." And I said, "Well, there must be a catch to it." He said, "There is. The catch is you have to serve 2 years in the Army for every year we send you to school." So I multiplied 12 times 2 quickly, even before I became a CPA, I could do that. I said, "No, sir, I can't do that." He said, "Okay, if you can't be a doctor, then become a CPA." I said, "Well, what do they do?" He said, "They're the people that help businesses become successful and individuals save taxes and get all the good things in life that financial planning can bring." I said, "Well, thank you for sharing that with me." So then I left the Army, went college hopping because pardon me, I had to earn something that allowed me to have a doorway to college called the GI Bill. So I ended up at the University of Richmond, talked to a fellow named Dean Pinchbeck. Any of you who from the Richmond area might know that name. But Dean Pinchbeck interviewed me. He said, "Look, son," he said, "you're thoroughly unqualified to be at this university." I said, "Well, thank you, sir, for sharing that with me." He said, "But since you've served your country, we're going to let you in on a trial basis." So I started University of Richmond, struck up a relationship with a friend, and at that time at the University of Richmond you did not have to choose your major until you entered your junior year. So we were getting ready to enter our junior year. I was walking across the campus one day with my friend Jerry. I said, "Jerry, we've got to choose our major." He said, "I know." I said, "What are you going to major in?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "My dad's a CPA. I guess I'll major in accounting." I said, "Me too." So that's what I mean. I stumbled across a profession that for 40 years has allowed me to become personally, professionally, and financially more successful than I ever hoped to be as that trail unfolded for me. I also found out that we are in a unique position to give back to our community. My first involvement in the political world, I suppose, was being active in the PTA. And my wife and I decided early on we wanted to influence the public policy to the extent we could, and particularly focusing on education of our children. I met a young man there who told me one night, he said, I'm going to run for the Board of Supervisors in Henrico County, and I need someone to help me. What are CPAs always asked to do? Be treasurer, right? He said, will you be my treasurer? I said, of course, I'll be glad to. I didn't know what I was supposed to do, but I said, of course, I'll do it. So I started by becoming treasurer in a campaign, and I saw it unfold. I saw how difficult it is. I followed his career, and by the way, he's still on the Board of Supervisors in Henrico County, been there for 40 years, I guess. But in any event, I saw the sacrifice, I saw the commitment that's required, but I also saw that people in public office can do some good. Now, fast forward, back in the 80s, I guess it was, and I'm sure Sam Dario was involved, we were called upon to do battle with an issue dealing with unlicensed accountants. That was kind of the term we used when we wanted to talk about bookkeepers. And they were beginning to become more empowered in Virginia. And I think there was a bill, Sam, before the legislature that would allow them to do audits, as I recall. They could do virtually everything we could do. The legislature or legislators really did not understand our profession. So someone from the society asked me to go down to the Capitol. I'd never been there before. They asked me to talk to legislators. I'd never seen one before that I know of. And I had to lobby, or at least talk about, some unique issues about our profession. And I saw firsthand how it's important that we become involved, because that issue could have been devastating to our profession over the years, because there had been no distinction between those of us who hold a CPA license and the franchise that goes with that protects our services as independent auditors, and those of unlicensed practitioners. So I think that was successful. Along about the same time, Governor Dalton, who was a mentor of mine, along with that same supervisor who I'd served as treasurer of, came to me and says, Stosch, we'd like for you to run for the House of Delegates. I said, why would I want to do that? I said, my business is up and booming. I think at that time we had about 100 people. I said, three of us started this little CPA firm. We've done well. I'm proud of our progress. I innocently thought it was dependent on me. I found out later that wasn't the case. But I was absolutely sure if I wasn't there every day it would collapse, right, Barkley? But in any event, I protested. I said, look, I have a good business. My children are in college. They've been through public schools. They've gotten a great education. They're now in public colleges and doing well. I've finally reached the point where I've personally, professionally, and financially, I can do some things I'd like to do. Why would I want to give all that up? And he said something that was profound. He said, look, it's because you've been given these opportunities. It's because your children have taken advantage of a public school system that's educated them well and will take advantage of our public colleges and universities. It's because you've been in a commonwealth where your business and others of your clients are prospered. It's because of all of that you have a duty to give back. Now that's a pretty heavy duty condemnation or admonition. But I felt that I had to give him an answer. So I got back with him a little later on. I said, well, how long do I have to serve? He said, well, the House of Delegates is 2 years. I said, okay, then I'll serve 2 years. Now that was 30 years ago. Now why did I continue? I found out that an ordinary person like me, someone with our background in particular, can do a lot of good in the legislative process. In terms of stewardship, let me tell you some of the achievements, and I will not take credit for all of these by any stretch of the imagination, but I've been a part of it. Virginia now is the best state in the nation to conduct business, bar none. If you want to locate a business in Virginia, as we've attracted Altria, Genworth, Capital One, Meade Westvaco, and thousands of other smaller entities and hundreds of thousands of jobs and millions of dollars of investment, it's been because we have consciously tried to make Virginia the most business-friendly state in the nation, and we've achieved that. Virginia is also the best state in the nation to prepare a young person for a successful career. We have some of the finest school systems, finest colleges and universities, notwithstanding the tuition going up. Well, we truly have an environment where those of you who have children or grandchildren can rest assured that they're better off in Virginia than any other state in the nation. We have the 12th largest population, 7th highest income. So we're a relatively high income state. We are threatened a bit today because we are number 2 in the receipt of federal funding, primarily because of our concentration of technology companies around the Northern Virginia area. So whenever there's a hiccup in the federal economy, it potentially can adversely impact Virginia more than many. Even our Medicaid type of programs are threatened if the budget doesn't get straightened out up there. But in any event, Virginia is positioned with a budget surplus, meaning our revenues exceed our expenses, which is unheard of if you read the national news. And we've done a pretty good job, I think, of following the admonition of fulfilling our trust by managing those things that we've been entrusted with.